Looks like it's the alternator.
How much will that cost?
Parts and labor around 800.
Oh no.
Single dad fixing Corvette alone until 3 billionaires whisper, "You're going to marry one of us." The late afternoon sun painted the Arizona highway in shades of copper and gold as the sleek black Mercedes S-Class glided through the desert landscape. Inside, 3 women who collectively control billions of dollars were engaged in the kind of conversation that only comes after too many hours on the road and too much champagne at lunch. "I'm telling you, the hotel industry is dying," declared Victoria Ash, adjusting her Cartier sunglasses as she drove. At 32, she was the youngest self-made billionaire in commercial real estate, with a portfolio that included half of Manhattan's luxury high. Her auburn hair was pulled back in a severe bun that somehow made her look both professional and predatory. In the passenger seat, Isabel Chun laughed a sound like wind chimes made of platinum, says the woman who just bought 3 resorts in the Maldives. At 29, Isabel had inherited her father's tech empire and quintupled it before her 30th birthday. She wore a white silk blouse that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent, and she wore it like armor. From the back seat, Celeste Davenport remained quiet, watching the desert roll by. At 24, she was the youngest of the trio and the most recently wealthy, though recently was relative. When you inherited a hotel empire at her blonde hair caught the sunlight streaming through the tinted windows, and her blue eyes held a distance that had nothing to do with the view. "Celeste's hotels are doing fine," Isabel continued, twisting around to look at her friend. "Aren't they, darling? The Mel Brock chain is practically printing money. They're profitable," Celeste said softly, her fingers tracing patterns on her royal blue blazer. It was Armani perfectly tailored, paired with designer denim shorts that cost more than some people made in a week. Even on a road trip, she looked like she'd stepped out of a Forbes photo shoot. But her friends knew the truth. The clothes were armored too. But Victoria's not entirely wrong. "The industry's changing. Everything's changing," Victoria said, her voice taking on the philosophical tone that meant she'd had exactly 3 glasses of wine. "We're all changing, or we should be. When was the last time any of us did something unexpected?" "I bought a yacht last month," Isabel offered. "That's not unexpected. That's tax deductible," Victoria shot back. "I mean really unexpected. Dangerous. Fun." Celeste opened her mouth to respond when a sound like a gunshot made all 3 women jump. The Mercedes lurched violently to the right. "What the hell?" Victoria gripped the steering wheel, fighting to keep the car straight as it shuddered and bucked. The luxury vehicle, which had cost more than a small house, suddenly felt as controllable as a shopping cart with a broken wheel. "Pull over!" Isabel's voice was sharp, her tech executive decisiveness cutting through the panic. "Slowly. Don't over..." Victoria managed to guide the car onto the shoulder, gravel crunching under $18,000 tires, one of which was now completely flat. They sat in stunned silence for a moment. 3 billionaires in a broken car in the middle of nowhere. The irony not lost on any of them. "Well," Isabel said finally, pulling out her phone, "this is unexpected." She stared at the screen, her perfectly made-up face twisting into a frown. "And we have no signal." "Of course we don't." Victoria unbuckled her seatbelt with more force than necessary. "I'll call AAA from..." She looked at her own phone. "I have no signal either. This is ridiculous. We're in America, not the Amazon." Celeste climbed out of the car, grateful to stretch her legs despite the circumstances. The desert heat hit her like a wall, but there was something cleansing about it too. The sun was lower now, painting everything in warm amber tones. And there, about a quarter-mile down the road, she saw something that made her squint. "There's a building," she said, pointing. "Looks like a garage, maybe?" The other 2 women joined her, their designer heels crunching on gravel that had probably never seen a $1,000 shoe before. "That's not a garage. That's a shed with delusions of grandeur," Victoria muttered, but she was already walking toward it. "Still, beggars can't be choosers. Come on." As they got closer, Celeste could see it was indeed a garage. Small, weathered, but clearly operational. The large bay door was rolled up, and inside, illuminated by the golden afternoon light, stood a man. He was bent over the open hood of a cherry-red Corvette Stingray, his hands buried in the engine, completely absorbed in his work. He wore a blue mechanic's uniform that had seen better days. The sleeves rolled up to reveal forearms corded with muscle and decorated with oil stains. Even from a distance, there was something magnetic about him, the way he moved with such focused intensity, the casual strength evident in every gesture. "Hello," Victoria called out, her voice carrying that particular tone wealthy people use when addressing service workers, polite but unmistakably commanding. "We need some help." The man straightened up, and Celeste felt something shift in her chest. It was younger than she expected, maybe 28, with dark hair that needed a cut and a face that was handsome in a completely unpolished way. Stubble shadowed his jaw, and there was a smudge of grease on his cheekbone that somehow made him look even more attractive. But it was his eyes that caught a deep brown, intelligent, and currently assessing the three of them with an expression that was hard to read. "Afternoon," he said, his voice warm and unhurried. There was a slight Western drawl to it, lazy and confident. "Car trouble." "Brilliant deduction," Victoria said with a smile that was meant to be charming but came off as condescending. "We have a flat tire about a quarter-mile back. Can you help us?" The man wiped his hands on a rag that hung from his pocket, taking his time. Celeste noticed the wedding ring was absent from his left hand, but there was a thin tan line where one used to be. He walked to the edge of the garage, shading his eyes as he looked down the road, toward their Mercedes at. "That your S-Class?" he asked. "Yes." Isabel stepped forward, pulling out her wallet. "We can pay, obviously. Whatever your rate is, we'll double it if you can help us quickly." Something flickered across the man's face. Not quite irritation, but close. "I don't price gouge, ma'am. Standard rate is standard rate." He looked back at the Corvette, then at them, clearly weighing his options. "I can help you, but I need to finish what I'm working on first. Safety issue. Can't leave it half done." "How long will that take?" Victoria's patience was clearly wearing thin. 30 minutes, maybe, he said it casually, like time was something he had plenty of. "You're welcome to wait inside where it's cool. I've got water, cold soda in the fridge." The three women exchanged glances. Celeste could practically read their thoughts, sit in a stranger's garage in the middle of nowhere. Victoria would rather walk back to New York in those heels. But the sun was setting, and the temperature, while still warm, would drop fast once it was gone. "We'll wait," Celeste heard herself say, surprising even herself. "Thank you." The man nodded, a small smile playing at the corner of his mouth. "Ryan Walker," he said, offering a hand that was clean despite the grease-stained rag. "Welcome to my humble shop." Victoria shook his hand. First, her grip probably firmer than necessary. Victoria, "Isabel Chun Celeste Davenport." If Ryan recognized any of their names, and Celeste would have better hotel empire than anyone who read the business section, but he didn't show it. He just gestured to a small waiting area that consisted of a worn leather couch, a coffee table made from an old engine block, and a mini-fridge that hummed quietly in the corner. "Make yourselves comfortable," he said. "Like I said, shouldn't be long." As he walked back to the Corvette, Isabel leaned close to Celeste and Victoria, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Did you see his hands?" "I saw his face," Victoria murmured back, her eyes following Ryan as he bent back over the engine. "Handsome, in that rugged, salt-of-the-earth way." "Look at his arms," Isabel added, fanning herself with her manicured hand. "That's real work, not a personal trainer." Celeste said nothing, but she'd noticed everything. The way he carried himself with quiet confidence, the intelligence in his eyes, the fact that he'd set his rate before hearing how rich they were. In her world, everyone had a price, and everyone was willing to negotiate upward. But Ryan Walker had dismissed a doubled rate like it was pocket change. "He's single," Victoria observed, her voice taking on a speculative tone. "No ring. Divorced." "Probably," Isabel countered. Tan line suggests recent. They were talking about him like he was a curiosity in a museum, and Celeste felt an unexpected surge of irritation. "He's a person," she said quietly, "with a name you both just learned." Victoria raised an eyebrow. Someone's defensive. Someone's decent. Celeste shot back, but she smiled to soften it. Come on, let's not be those women. They settled onto the couch, which was surprisingly comfortable despite its age, and watched Ryan work. There was something almost meditative about it. The way his hands moved with practiced certainty. The small adjustments and checks he performed with the ease of someone who'd done this 1,000 times. Celeste found herself unable to look away. So, Ryan, Victoria called out after a few minutes, unable to bear the silence. You run this place by yourself? Yes, ma'am, he replied without looking up. Just me and whoever needs help. Must be lonely, Isabel observed. Now he did look up, and there was something in his expression that made Celeste's chest tighten. Sometimes, he said simply, but lonely is not the same as alone. I've got my daughter, and that's enough. The words hung in the air. A daughter. Celeste saw Victoria and Isabel exchange glances, but she couldn't read them. Were they disappointed, relieved, intrigued? How old? Celeste asked before she could stop herself. Ryan's face transformed when he smiled. Truly smiled. Not the polite version he'd given them earlier. 7. Her name's Hannibal. She's at school right now, but she'll be home in about an hour. He gestured to a small desk in the corner, where a child's drawing was pinned to a corkboard. That's her latest masterpiece. Says it's me working on a motorcycle, but I think it looks more like a dragon eating a bicycle. All 3 women laughed, and some of the tension in the air dissipated. Celeste stood up, drawn to the drawing, despite herself. It was typical 7-year-old art stick figures with circle heads, a chaotic rainbow of colors, the kind of pure creativity that came before self-consciousness set in, but there was love in every crayon stroke. She's talented, Celeste said softly. She's everything, Ryan replied, his voice carrying that particular weight that only a parent's voice can carry. He went back to work on the Corvette, but now there was a lightness to him that hadn't been there before. Her mother passed 3 years ago. Cancer. So it's just the 2 of us now. The casual way. He said it like he was commenting on the weather, not describing a tragedy made Celeste's throat tight. She'd lost her husband 2 years ago, though loss felt like the wrong word for someone she'd never really had. Marcus had been 45 to her 22, a business arrangement disguised as a marriage. When he died of a heart attack, she'd felt guilty for feeling relieved. I'm sorry, she said, and meant it. Ryan nodded acknowledgement. Life keeps moving forward whether you're ready or not. You learn to move with it. He tightened something with a wrench, the muscles in his arms flexing. Hannah keeps me moving. Kids have a way of not letting you wallow. Do you ever get help? Isabel asked. With the business. Or with Hannah. Business is steady enough that I don't need full-time help. And Hannah goes to the elementary school in town, about 15 minutes down the road. She takes the bus there and back. He straightened up, wiping his hands again. As for help with her? We manny. She's a good kid. Smart, curious, asks about 1,000,000 questions a day. Lately, she's been obsessed with space. Wants to be an astronaut. Then she'll be an astronaut, Victoria said with the confidence of someone who'd never been told she couldn't do something. Ryan laughed, but there was an edge to it. Maybe. If we can afford college, if she still wants it in 10 years, if life doesn't get in the way, he shook his head. Sorry, didn't mean to sound bitter. It's just different world for people like us. The words hung in the air. People like us versus people like them. The divide drawn clearly, even though no one had mentioned money or class. Celeste felt it like a physical thing, a wall she'd been aware of her whole life but rarely acknowledged. Money doesn't guarantee dreams come true either, she found herself saying. All eyes turned to her. Ryan surprised. Victoria and Isabel's curious. I know people with all the resources in the world who still feel trapped. Success isn't the same as happiness. Ryan studied her for a long moment, and Celeste felt like he was seeing past the designer clothes and expensive jewelry to something deeper. No, he said finally. I suppose it isn't. The moment stretched between them, charged with something Celeste couldn't name. Then Ryan turned back to the Corvette. Almost done. Here, another 10 minutes, and I'll get your tire changed. As he worked, the three women retreated to their corner of the garage, and Victoria leaned in close. "Okay," she whispered, her eyes dancing with mischief. "I'm calling it now. He's going to marry one of us." Victoria, Isabel hissed, but she was smiling. "You can't just why not? Look at him. He's gorgeous, genuine, great with kids, and probably hasn't been spoiled by wealth. He's like a unicorn." Victoria's gaze turned, calculating. "And before you both get any ideas, I saw him first." "You did not!" Isabel protested. Celeste pointed out the garage. "If anything, she saw him first. Seeing doesn't count. I spoke to him first." Celeste felt a strange mix of amusement and annoyance. "You're both insane. You can't just decide someone's going to marry one of you. That's not how life works, isn't it?" Victoria challenged. "We're three beautiful, successful women. He's a single father, struggling to make ends meet in a garage in the middle of nowhere. We could change his life. Maybe he doesn't want his life changed," Celeste shot back, surprised by the heat in her voice. "Maybe he's happy exactly as he is." Victoria and Isabel exchanged another look, this one loaded with meaning. "Interesting," Victoria said slowly. "Very interesting." Before Celeste could respond, Ryan called out, "All right, she's done. Let's go look at your tire." They followed him out into the gathering dusk. The temperature had dropped noticeably, and Celeste found herself grateful for her blazer. Ryan had grabbed a toolbox and a portable jack, carrying them with the easy strength of someone used to physical labor. As they walked, Isabel fell into step beside him. "So, Ryan, besides being the only mechanic for miles, what else do you do?" "This is it," he said simply. "Fix cars, fix motorcycles, fix anything with an engine. That's what I know. No hobbies." Victoria pressed from his other side. He smiled. "I ride. Got a Harley Davidson. I rebuilt myself. Blue and chrome. Sounds like thunder. On Sundays, when Hannah's with her grandmother, I'll take it out on the highway. Clear my head. Feel the wind. That's my church." Celeste, walking slightly behind, found herself imagining it Ryan on a motorcycle, the desert wind in his hair, no schedule to keep or people to impress, just movement and freedom and the road ahead. It sounded perfect. They reached the Mercedes, and Ryan let out a low whistle. "Nice vehicle." S580? S650, Victoria corrected, and immediately looked like she regretted the boast. "Maybach," Ryan said, impressed despite himself. $250,000 car. Can't say I've worked on one before, but a tire's a tire." He crouched down to examine the flat, running his hands over the rubber. "You ran over something sharp. Probably a piece of metal from road debris. Lucky it didn't blow out at speed." As he worked efficiently, professionally, with the kind of muscle memory that comes from years of repetition, the three women stood watching. The sun had fully set now, and the first stars were appearing in the darkening sky. It was quiet except for the sound of Ryan's tools and the distant cry of a hawk. "You know," Isabel said suddenly, "we're actually in the market for some help. My company needs someone who understands mechanical systems for a new project." Ryan didn't look up from his work. "I'm not an engineer, ma'am, just a mechanic." Sometimes that's exactly what we need. Practical knowledge, not theoretical. "I appreciate it, but I can't leave here. Hannah's school is here. Her friends, her grandmother." He tightened the last lug nut and stood up, brushing off his knees. "Besides, I'm not the corporate type. What if it was remote work?" Isabel persisted. I said, "No, thank you." The words were polite, but firm, and Celeste found herself admiring him for it. How many people would turn down what was probably a six-figure offer from a tech billionaire? Victoria tried a different approach. "What about investing? I have properties that need maintenance, oversight, real profit-sharing opportunity." "I'm good, ma'am." "At least take out cards," Isabel said, pulling out her wallet. "In case you change your mind." Ryan accepted the cards with the same polite distance he'd maintained throughout. "I won't, but thank you." He turned to his toolbox, began packing up. Celeste stepped forward before she could stop herself. "How much do we owe you?" $45 for the call-out, $60 for the labor," Ryan said. 105 total. Victoria laughed in disbelief. That's it? For coming to us, changing our tire, dealing with 3 demanding women? That's my rate, Ryan said simply. I don't charge people for being stranded. Celeste pulled out her wallet, extracted $200 in cash. Keep the change, please. Ryan looked at the money, then at her, and something passed between them again. That same charge current from before. I appreciate it, he said finally, but I don't take tips for doing my job. Then call it a thank you for the hospitality. The water, the comfortable couch, the air conditioning. Celeste pressed the bills into his hand, her fingers brushing his calloused palm. The contact sent a spark up her arm. You didn't have to offer any of that. Ryan held her gaze for a long moment. His eyes were darker in the twilight, unreadable but intense. Then he, all right, thank you. They stood there, neither moving, until Victoria cleared her throat. Well, we should get going. Long drive back to Phoenix. As they walked back to the Mercedes, Celeste heard Isabel whisper to Victoria, Did you see that? The way they looked at each other. Oh, I saw, Victoria whispered back. This just got interesting. Before getting in the car, Celeste turned back. Ryan was still standing by the road, his toolbox at his feet, watching them. In the dying light, he looked like something out of a different time. Solid, real, uncomplicated by the things that complicated her life. Ryan, she called out. He raised his head. Thank you. Really? He nodded, a slow smile spreading across his face. Drive safe, Miss Davenport. All of you. As Victoria started the car and pulled back onto the highway, Celeste looked in the side mirror. Ryan was walking back to his garage, his figure growing smaller but somehow remaining larger than life in her mind. She touched the window, her fingerprints leaving marks on the expensive glass. So, Victoria said after a few miles of silence, we're all thinking it, right? That he's intriguing. Isabel supplied. Yes, that is genuine. In a way most men we meet aren't, Victoria continued. Also, yes, that one of us is going to see him again. Isabel finished. Definitely yes. Celeste said nothing, but she was already thinking about the Mel Brock Hotel in Phoenix, the one that needed a new maintenance supervisor. The previous one had quit last week, and she'd been meaning to fill the position. It was a good job, stable, with benefits and housing included. Perfect for a single father with a daughter. She should feel guilty for what she was thinking. It was manipulation, pure and simple, using her wealth and power to maneuver someone into her orbit. But she told herself it was also opportunity. Ryan was clearly talented, clearly struggling. She could help him. She could help Hannah. The fact that she also wanted to see him again, wanted to understand what it was about him that had cracked through her carefully maintained emotional walls, that was secondary. Or, so she told herself. I have a position opening at the Phoenix Mel Brock, she said quietly. Maintenance supervisor. It's a good job. Victoria and Isabel both turned to look at her. Victoria's eyes in the rearview mirror. Isabel twisting around in her seat. You're going to offer it to him? Isabel said. It wasn't a question. I'm going to offer him the opportunity to interview, Celeste corrected. If he's qualified, and if he's not, then he's not. But I suspect he is. Victoria laughed, but there was an edge to it. I should have known. The quiet one always gets there first. There's nothing to get to, Celeste protested. It's just a job offer. He probably won't even accept. He will, Victoria said with certainty, because you're going to make it impossible to refuse. Better salary than he's making now. Better benefits. Security for his daughter. You're going to offer him everything he needs. And what if I'm... Celeste's voice was sharper than she intended. Is that such a terrible thing? He's talented and underemployed. I have a position that needs filling. It's business. It's not business, Isabel said softly. Or at least, it's not just business. And that's okay. Celeste, you're allowed to be interested in someone. I'm not. Celeste started, then stopped. Was she interested? She'd barely spoken to the man, but something about him had gotten under her skin, past all her defenses. The way he'd talked about his daughter was such unguarded love. The way he'd refused to be impressed or intimidated by their wealth. The way his hands had moved over the engine with such confident grace. "I'm just offering an opportunity," she said finally. "What he does with it is up to him." The rest of the drive passed in thoughtful silence. By the time they reached Phoenix, the sky was fully dark, the city lights spreading out below them like a field of earthbound stars. Victoria dropped Celeste off at her house, last a sprawling mansion in Paradise Valley that felt emptier every time she returned to it. "Think about what you're doing," Victoria said as Celeste gathered her bag. "I know that. Look, you're planning something." "I'm always planning something," Celeste replied. "It's what I do. Just be careful." Men like that, genuine men, they're not like the ones we usually deal with. You can't just buy them or manipulate them. I know that. Do you? Victoria's voice was gentler now. "Because I've seen you with men, Celeste. You keep them at arm's length. You control the relationship. But this one, if you go after this one, it's not going to work that way." Celeste climbed out of the car without responding. She stood in her driveway as the Mercedes pulled away, staring up at her house. 7,000 square feet of marble and glass and expensive emptiness. She'd inherited it with a hotel chain, along with the loneliness and the weight of expectations. Inside, she poured herself a glass of wine and stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows, overlooking the city. Somewhere out there, maybe 90 miles away, Ryan Walker was probably putting his daughter to bed, reading her a story, kissing her forehead, living a life that was small by her standards, but somehow felt infinitely richer. She pulled out her phone, found the contact for her HR director, and typed out a message. "I need you to prepare a job offer package for a maintenance supervisor position. Top-of-the-range salary, full benefits, relocation assistance, family housing. I'll send details tomorrow." Then, before she could second-guess herself, she pulled up her company's website and navigated to the career portal. She created a new listing: maintenance supervisor, Phoenix, Melbrook Hotel, and made sure it would appear at the top of any search engine results from mechanics in Arizona. It wasn't manipulation, she told herself. It was creating opportunity. And if Ryan Walker happened to find that opportunity and happened to take it, well, that would be his choice. She'd have nothing to do with it, except she would have everything to do with it. And they both knew it. Celeste finished her wine and went to bed. But sleep was elusive. She kept seeing Ryan's face, the way his eyes had held hers when she'd given him the money. The way his smile had transformed his features when he talked about his daughter. The way his hands had moved with such certainty over the engine. She'd been married before, but she'd never felt this pull, this curiosity, this desire to know more. Marcus had been a business decision. The men she'd dated since had been distractions. But Ryan Walker, with his oil-stained uniform and his honest eyes and his quiet dignity, he was something else entirely. And she was going to see him again. One way or another, she was going to see him again. The next morning, Celeste was in her office at the Melbrook headquarters. By 7, she pulled up Ryan's card, which she'd slipped into her purse before leaving the garage, and stared at it. Walker's Garage, it read, with a phone number and nothing else. No website, no email, just a phone number. She could call him, offer him the job directly. But that felt too forward, too obvious. Instead, she had her assistant send him a formal letter, explaining the position and inviting him to interview. Professional, businesslike, nothing personal, except everything about it was personal. And if she was honest with herself, she'd admit that. Morning, Ms. Davenport, her assistant, Jennifer, said as she brought in the morning briefing. "You have the board meeting at 9, lunch with the investors at noon." And she paused, studying Celeste's face. "Are you all right? You look different. Good, different. Like you actually slept for once." Celeste laughed, despite herself. "I didn't sleep. I was thinking about business. About possibilities." Jennifer, who'd been with her for 3 years and knew her better than most, raised an eyebrow. "Possibilities. That's new. Should I be worried?" "Maybe," Celeste admitted. "I'm not sure yet." The letter went out that afternoon. Celeste imagined it arriving at the garage in 3 days. Imagined Ryan opening it, reading it, considering it. Would he see it as opportunity or manipulation? Would he understand that she was offering it because she believed in him, not just because she wanted to see him again? Or was she lying to herself about that, too? Meanwhile, 90 miles away, Ryan Walker was teaching his daughter how to change the oil in his Harley. Hannah was covered in grease, up to her elbows, her blonde hair pulled back in a ponytail, her face scrunched in concentration. "Why do we have to change it, Daddy?" she asked for the third time. "Because the engine needs clean oil to run smooth," Ryan explained patiently. "Old oil gets dirty, stops protecting the parts. It's like brushing your teeth. You can skip it for a day or two, but eventually you'll have problems." Hannah nodded seriously. "So we take care of the motorcycle like we take care of ourselves." "Exactly." Ryan ruffled her hair, leaving an oil smudge that she didn't seem to notice. "You're getting good at this, baby girl? Can I ride on the Harley when I'm older?" "We'll see." "That means yes, right?" Ryan laughed. "That means we'll see. But maybe, if you promise to always wear a helmet and never go faster than your old man. Deal." Hannah went back to work, her tongue poking out in concentration, the way it always did when she was focused. Ryan watched her, his heart full in a way that money could never buy. This was his life, grease and engines, and a 7-year-old who asked a million questions. It was simple. It was hard. It was enough. But as he looked out at the desert highway, he found himself thinking about 3 women in a Mercedes, about a blonde woman with blue eyes who'd looked at him like he was something more than a mechanic in a dusty garage, about the way she'd insisted he take the money, the genuine warmth in her thank you. He shook his head, dismissing the thoughts. Women like that didn't exist in his world. They passed through like beautiful storms, and then they were gone, and that was fine. That was how it should be. Gun and Hannah was enough. But 3 days later, when the letter arrived from Melbrook Hotels, he stood in his garage, reading it over and over, the formal words blurring on the page. Maintenance supervisor. Phoenix. Top salary. Housing included. Benefits. Hannah came running in from the house, still in her school uniform. "Daddy, can we go to the park?" "Yeah, baby girl," he said absently, still staring at the letter. "Just give me a minute." She stood next to him, trying to see what he was reading. "What's that?" "It's a letter about a job, a new job. Are we moving?" Ryan looked down at his daughter's upturned face, saw the worry there, and felt his heart clench. "No, sweetheart, we're not moving. This is our home." But even as he said it, he was thinking about the salary figure on the letter. It was 3 times what he made now. 3 times. With that money, he could save for Hannah's college. He could take her on a real vacation, not just camping in the desert. He could stop worrying every time she needed new shoes or got sick or asked for something he couldn't afford. "Are you sure, Daddy?" "Because if it's a good job." Ryan folded the letter and tucked it into his pocket. "Come on, let's go to the park. We can talk about this later." But as they walked hand in hand down the dusty road, he couldn't stop thinking about it. About Phoenix, about a hotel called Melbrook, about a woman named Celeste Davenport who'd looked at him like he mattered, and he wondered if maybe, just maybe, some storms didn't pass through. Some storms changed everything. That night, Ryan couldn't sleep. He lay in his small bed in his small house, listening to Hannah's soft breathing from the room next door. The letter sat on his nightstand, practically glowing in the darkness. Phoenix, the big city, a real job with real benefits. He could give Hannah everything: good schools, opportunities, a future that didn't involve wondering if they'd make rent this month. But Phoenix meant leaving this place, leaving Hannah's grandmother, who lived just 10 minutes away and was the only family they had left, leaving the garage he'd built with his own 2 hands, leaving the desert that felt like home in his bones. He got up, padding softly to the kitchen in his boxer shorts and t-shirt. The house was small, just 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a kitchen that barely fit a table. But it was theirs, paid off with money from his father's life, insurance, no mortgage, no landlord, just a roof and walls and memories of better times. Ryan poured himself a glass of water and stood at the window, looking out at the dark desert. The moon was nearly full, painting everything in silver light. Somewhere out there, 3 rich women were probably asleep in beds that cost more than his car. And one of them, the blonde one, with eyes like the summer sky, had offered him a way out. Or was it a way in? He thought about the way she'd looked at him. Not with pity, not with the condescension he sometimes got from wealthy folks who stopped by the garage. There'd been something else in her eyes. Recognition. Maybe. Like she saw him as a person. Not just a mechanic in a dirty uniform. Daddy. Ryan turned to find Hannah in her doorway, rubbing her eyes. Her blonde hair was sticking up in every direction, and she clutched her stuffed rabbit to her chest. "What are you doing up, baby girl? I had a bad dream." He opened his arms, and she ran to him, still small enough to scoop up, even though she insisted she was almost grown up now. He carried her to the couch and sat down, cradling her against his chest. "Want to talk about it?" Hannah shook her head against his shirt. "It was scary, but it's okay now." They sat in the darkness, father and daughter, the only sound their breathing and the distant howl of a coyote. Ryan stroked her hair, feeling the weight of every decision he'd ever made and every decision still to come. "Hannah," he said softly, "if we could live somewhere else, somewhere bigger, with more opportunities, would you want to?" She looked up at him, her eyes serious in the moonlight. "Would you be there?" "Of course." "Then I don't care where we live." It was the answer of a 7-year-old who didn't understand the complexity of the world yet. But it was also the truth. Simple and pure. As long as they were together, the location didn't matter. "Go back to bed, sweetheart," Ryan said, kissing her forehead. "School tomorrow." After he tucked her back in, checking under the bed for monsters and in the closet for ghosts, their nightly ritual, Ryan returned to his own room. He picked up the letter again, reading it by the light of his phone. The job description was straightforward. Oversee maintenance operations for a luxury hotel. Manage a small team. Ensured all systems ran smoothly. He could do that. He'd been fixing things his whole life. But it was the other details that made his heart race. Family housing included 3-bedroom apartment within the hotel complex, fully furnished. 3 bedrooms. Hannah could have her own room, and he could set up the 3rd as a study for her homework. Full medical and dental benefits for employee independence. Hannah hadn't been to the dentist in 8 months because he couldn't afford it. Salary range, $75 menos $85 annually. Magi, 28,000 last year. It was too good, too perfect, which meant there had to be a catch. The catch, he suspected, had blue eyes and wore designer clothes and probably had no idea what she was doing to his carefully ordered life. The next day dragged. Ryan worked on an old Ford pickup that needed a new transmission, his hands moving automatically while his mind was elsewhere. Every time the phone rang, he jumped, half expecting it to be someone from Mel Brock Hotels calling to rescind the offer or explain the catch. But the day passed uneventfully until Hannah got home from school, bursting through the garage door with her usual energy. Daddy, we learned about Mars today. Did you know it takes 6 months to get there? And there's no air, so you have to wear a spacesuit all the time." And she stopped mid-sentence, noticing his distraction. "Are you okay?" Ryan wiped his hands and crouched down to her level. "I'm fine, baby girl. Just thinking about the job letter. Smart kid. Too smart sometimes? Yeah, about the letter." Hannah's face grew serious. "It's a good job, right? With more money." "It's a very good job." "Then why do you look sad?" Ryan pulled her into a hug, burying his face in her hair that smelled like her strawberry shampoo. "I'm not sad. Just, it's complicated. Grandma says that things are only complicated if you make 'em complicated." He laughed, despite himself. "Grandma's very wise. So we're gonna take it. The job? I don't know yet. I need to think about it more. Maybe talk to Grandma. See what she thinks. Can I come with you when you talk to Grandma?" "Absolutely." They drove to his mother-in-law's house in his pickup truck, a Chevy that he maintained meticulously, but that still looked like what it was, a working man's vehicle. Martha lived in a small house, much like his own, neat and clean but worn by time and weather. She came out onto the porch when she saw them pull up, wiping flour from her hands onto her apron. At 68, Martha was still spry and sharp, with gray hair cut practical short and eyes that missed nothing. "Afternoon!" she called out. "Hannah, I've got cookies. Cooling on the counter. Go on inside and help yourself." Hannah needed no second invitation. She disappeared into the house, leaving Ryan alone with a woman who'd been his anchor since Sarah died. Martha gestured to the porch swing. "You've got that look. The one that says you're carrying something heavy." Ryan sat down beside her, pulling the letter from his pocket. "I got a job offer." "In Phoenix?" Martha took the letter, reading it carefully. Her face gave away nothing, though Ryan knew her well enough to see the minute tightening around her eyes, the way her jaw clenched just slightly. "It's a good offer," she said finally. "Very. I know. You'd be a fool not to take it. I know that, too. But you're worried about leaving me." It wasn't a question. Ryan sighed. "You're Hannah's only grandmother, Sarah's mother. Your family." Martha folded the letter carefully, pressing the creases with her thumb. "Ryan Walker, you listen to me. I'm old, but I'm not dead. I'm not helpless. And I won't have you turning down an opportunity like this because you're worried about an old woman who can take care of herself just fine. Martha! No." Her voice was firm. "That little girl in there deserves every chance you can give her. Good schools. Good health care. A future that doesn't involve worrying about making ends meet. You think Sarah would want you to turn this down?" The mention of his late wife hit Ryan like a physical blow. Sarah, who'd worked 2 jobs while fighting cancer because she wanted to make sure Hannah was provided for. Sarah, who'd made him promise on a deathbed that he'd give their daughter the best life possible. "She'd want you to take it," Martha continued, her voice softer now. "And she'd want you to stop feeling guilty about living your life." "It's been 3 years, and I still feel her everywhere," Ryan admitted. "In the house, in the garage, watching Hannah grow up. Sometimes I catch myself turning to tell her something, and then I remember." Martha took his hand, her grip still strong despite her age. "That never goes away, son. Not completely. But it gets easier. You'll learn to carry the grief instead of letting it carry you." She paused. "Is that all that's bothering you? Or is there something else?" Ryan thought about 3 women in a Mercedes, about blue eyes and designer clothes, about the way Celeste Davenport had looked at him like he was worth looking at. "There was a woman," he said slowly. 3 women, actually. They came by the garage a few days ago with a flat tire. I helped them, and we got to talking. One of them, she owned the hotel. Mel Brock. This job offer came from her." Martha's eyes sharpened. And I don't know what her angle is. People don't just offer strangers jobs like this. Maybe she saw you were good at what you do. Maybe she needs help and you seemed qualified. Or maybe she has other reasons. Such as," Ryan shrugged uncomfortably. "I don't know. But she was different. Rich. Obviously. Beautiful. But she talked to me like I was a person, not just a mechanic. And there was something in the way she looked at me." Martha laughed, a sound like wind chimes. "Ryan Walker, are you telling me a pretty woman noticed you and now you're running scared?" "I'm not running scared, aren't you? You've buried yourself in this garage for 3 years, convincing yourself that work and Hannah are enough. And maybe they are, but maybe they're not. Maybe you're allowed to be noticed. Maybe you're allowed to be interesting to someone." "She's not my kind of people, Martha. She lives in a different world. So did your mother, and my daughter married you anyway." Ryan started to protest, then stopped. Martha had a point. Sarah had come from money. Not billionaire money, but comfortable middle-class money. Her parents had been horrified when she'd fallen for a mechanic's son. They'd cut her off, disowned her, and she'd chosen Ryan anyway. "This is different," he said finally. "How? Sarah loved me. This woman, Celeste. She doesn't even know me. Then maybe you should let her get to know you. Take the interview. See where it goes. What's the worst that could happen?" Ryan thought about all the ways this could go wrong. He could take the job and hate it. He could take the job and fail. He could take the job and discover that Celeste Davenport had ulterior motives that had nothing to do with his qualifications. or he could stay here in his garage, safe and small, while Hannah grew up wondering why her father never took chances. "I'll think about it," he said. Martha patted his hand. "You do that. And while you're thinking, remember that Hannah and I can drive to Phoenix anytime we want. It's 90 miles, not 900. We'll be fine." Inside, they could hear Hannah chattering away to herself, probably acting out some elaborate space adventure with Martha's cat. The sound made Ryan smile despite his uncertainty. "You're a good father," Martha said quietly. "Sarah knew that. I know that. And somewhere out there, someone else is starting to see it too. Don't be afraid of that, Ryan. Don't be afraid of being seen." That night, Ryan sat at his small kitchen table with a pen and paper. He made 2 lists: reasons to take the job and reasons to stay. The stay list was short: familiarity, Martha nearby, no change for Hannah. The take it list was longer: money, opportunities for Hannah, benefits, a chance at something more. But at the bottom of the take it list, in handwriting he barely recognized as his own, he'd written one more thing: Celeste. He stared at that word for a long time before crossing it out, then crossing it out again, then finally tearing up the paper entirely. This wasn't about her. It couldn't be about her. This was about Hannah and giving his daughter the best life possible. But as he lay in bed that night, it was Celeste's face he saw in his mind. The way the setting sun had caught her hair, turning it to gold. The way her voice had sounded when she'd said thank you like she really meant it. The way she'd noticed the drawing Hannah had made and called it talented instead of cute. He fell asleep thinking about her and woke up knowing what he had to do. In Phoenix, Celeste was having a similar sleepless night. She sat in her home office, staring at her laptop screen. The HR system showed that the letter had been delivered 3 days ago. No response yet. Maybe he wasn't interested. Maybe the offer had offended him. Maybe he'd seen through her motives and decided he wanted nothing to do with a rich woman who was clearly manipulating circumstances to see him again. "You're overthinking this?" she said aloud to the empty room. Her phone rang. "Victoria, tell me you haven't been stalking your HR portal waiting for him to respond," Victoria said without preamble. Celeste closed her laptop guiltily. "I wasn't stalking. I was checking. There's a difference." "There isn't. Actually, look, I've been thinking about our desert mechanic too." "We all have. Isabel called me today to ask if I thought it was weird that we were all interested in the same guy. And what did you tell her?" "That it makes perfect sense. He's genuine. He's got integrity. He's hot in that rugged working class way that none of us ever encounter." "Of course, we're all interested. So what do we do about it?" Celeste asked, surprising herself with the question. "Well, you already made your move with the job offer." That was smart. Aggressive, but smart. "Isabel is planning to accidentally drive by his garage next week to see if her car needs something checked. I'm considering buying property in that area and needing a local expert's opinion." Celeste laughed despite herself. "We're all insane. We're all interested," Victoria corrected. "And may the best woman win." After they hung up, Celeste poured herself a glass of wine and stood at her window again. The city sprawled below her, millions of lights representing millions of lives she'd never touch or understand. She'd inherited an empire, but she'd never built anything herself. She'd been given wealth, but she'd never earned it. She'd been married, but she'd never been in love. Ryan Walker, with his calloused hands and his honest eyes, represented something she'd never had: authenticity. A life built through work and choices and sacrifices. A love that had been real and deep and worth fighting for. She wanted that. Not just him, though she wanted him to. Wanted to know what those hands would feel like on her skin, what that voice would sound like saying her name in the darkness. But she wanted what he represented: purpose, meaning, a life that mattered for reasons beyond dollar signs. The next morning, her assistant knocked on her office door, looking nervous. "Miss Davenport? Someone called for you?" Ryan Walker Celeste's heart jumped into her throat. "And he'd like to schedule an interview for the maintenance supervisor position." He was very polite. "Professional." He asked if next Tuesday would work. "Next Tuesday is perfect," Celeste said, trying to keep her voice steady. "What time?" He suggested 10 a.m. He said his daughter would be in school and his mother-in-law could watch the garage. 10 a.m. next Tuesday. Confirm it. And Jennifer, Celeste paused. Make sure the interview is in my office, not HR. Jennifer's eyebrows rose. Your office? That's unusual. I like to be involved in key hires. Of course, Miss Davenport. After Jennifer left, Celeste allowed herself a smile. He was coming. Ryan Walker was coming to Phoenix, coming to her hotel, coming to an interview that they both knew was probably unnecessary. She'd already decided to hire him. The interview was just a formality. Or was it? What if he interviewed badly? What if the chemistry she'd felt was one-sided? What if bringing him here was a terrible mistake that would hurt both of them? But it was too late now. The wheels were in motion. Next Tuesday, she'd see him again. And then they'd both find out what this really was. Opportunity, manipulation, or something else entirely. Something neither of them had been looking for, but both of them desperately needed. Tuesday morning, Ryan adjusted his thrift store tie in his truck's rearview mirror. Hannah had already gone to school, and Martha would pick her up. He took a deep breath and drove to Phoenix. The Mel Brock Hotel rose 30 stories of glass and steel. Valet attendants watched his beat-up Chevy rumble past toward visitor parking. Ryan wore his best jeans, white button-down, and that navy tie. His boots were polished as well as 20-year-old leather cabi. The lobby took his breath away. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, wealthy guests moving through luxury like it was their natural habitat. Ryan Walker, for Miss Davenport, he told the receptionist, suddenly aware of his calloused hands. 28th floor, executive suite. The elevator ride felt eternal. Each floor increased his doubt. He was a mechanic. She was a billionaire CEO. What was he thinking? But Hannah deserved better schools, dental insurance, a future without money worries. When he entered Celeste's office, floor 2 ceiling windows overlooking the city, she turned from the view, and his breath caught. Royal blue blazer over white silk, blonde hair, catching sunlight, those impossibly blue eyes. Ryan, thank you for coming. Her voice did something to his chest. Miss Davenport, when they shook hands, that electric current flowed between them again, stronger in this intimate space. Celeste, please. She gestured to a leather couch. Coffee? Water? I'm fine. They sat, and he could see she was nervous too. Her hands clasped together, her breath deliberate. I'll be honest, Celeste said. This job is yours, if you want it. You're qualified, but I need to know. Do you really want it, or just the money? Her directness surprised him. Both, Ryan admitted. The money changes everything for Hannah, but I also want a challenge. 10 years in that garage, wondering what else I could do. And the fear, terrified of failing, moving Hannah away and discovering I'm not cut out for your world. Celeste leaned forward, intense. You won't fail. I see genuine integrity in you. That's rare. You barely know me. I know enough. She stood, moved to the window. Can I tell you something I shouldn't tell a job candidate here? I've run this empire 3 years. Every day I'm surrounded by people who care about my money, not me. They smile, agree with everything, and I never know who's genuine. She turned to face him. But you changed a tire, refused to be impressed by wealth, turned down job offers without hesitation. You're real, and I desperately need real people around me. Ryan stood, closing the distance between them. Is that what this is? You offering me a job because I'm real? Partly, her voice softened, but also me hoping we could know each other without the wealth gap. Just two people. Before Ryan could respond, the door burst open. Victoria and Isabel walked in like they owned the place. Celeste, we need to. Victoria stopped seeing Ryan. Mr. Walker, what a surprise! Is it? Ryan crossed his arms. This is about the he'll marry one of us comment, right? Celeste's face flushed. You heard that. Desert's quiet. Sound carries. Victoria stepped forward, confident. Look, Ryan, we're successful. Attractive women. You're a good man who needs security. It's practical. Practical. Ryan's voice hardened. I'm not a prize. I lost my wife 3 years ago. When I love again, if I love again, it won't be because someone decided I'd make a good acquisition. I'm not anyone's project or charity case. He looked at Celeste, hurt flickering in his eyes. I thought you were different. Wait, Celeste started, but the door opened again. Hannah stood there in her yellow dress, tears streaming down her face. Martha was behind her, looking worried. Daddy! Hannah ran to him. Ryan scooped her up automatically. Baby girl! What's wrong? Tommy Peterson said, we're moving, and I'll never see him again. And what if you leave me like Mommy left? The words stumbled out between sobs. Ryan's heart shattered. Oh, Hannah, I would never leave you. Never. Mommy got sick, remember? But I'm healthy and strong. I'm not going anywhere without you. But we might move. Only if you want to. You're my whole world. Celeste knelt beside them. Hi, Hannah. I'm Celeste. You drew that beautiful picture in your dad's garage, didn't you? Hannah's tears slowed. You saw my picture? I did. Your dad showed it with so much pride. Really? Hannah looked at Ryan for confirmation. Really? Ryan said softly, meeting Celeste's eyes. In that moment, something shifted. This wasn't about wealth or competition. This was about a woman who saw his daughter not as an inconvenience, but as someone worth noticing. Victoria cleared her throat. We should leave. Yes, Celeste said firmly, standing. You both should. Now, after they left, Celeste turned back to Ryan and Hannah. I'm sorry for everything. They ambushed you. The truth is, I offered you this job partly because I wanted to see you again, but not as a prize, because when you looked at me in that garage, you saw me. Not my money or name, just me. I haven't felt seen like that in years. Ryan studied her, Hannah still in his arms. And now, the job offer stands, whatever you decide. But I'd like to know you. And, Hannah, no expectations, just possibility. Martha, who'd been silent, spoke up. That sounds reasonable. Ryan looked at his daughter. Then Celeste standing in her expensive office, offering something he'd never thought to want. I have conditions, he said finally. 3-month trial. If it doesn't work, no hard feelings. I keep my garage as backup. And whatever happens between us, personally, doesn't affect my employment. Celeste smiled, a real smile that transformed her face. Agreed. Hannah tugged Ryan's collar. Does this mean we're moving to Phoenix? What do you think? Baby girl, want to try something new? Hannah looked at the beautiful office, at the sparkling city, at Celeste, who'd noticed her drawing. Will there be good schools? The best, Celeste said. And you'll be my dad's friend? I'd like to be, if you'll let me. Hannah considered this with 7-year-old seriousness. Okay, but you have to like motorcycles, and not be scared of grease, and be nice to Grandma. Celeste laughed. The sound like music. I can do all of that. Ryan extended his hand. Then you've got yourself a maintenance supervisor. Their hands met with warmth and possibility and the sense that sometimes the road you don't expect is exactly where you're meant to go. 3 months later, Ryan stood on the Mel Brock rooftop watching sunset paint Phoenix in gold and amber. The city hummed below. Behind him, his maintenance crew packed up after a successful cooling system repair. Hannah was in their 3-bedroom apartment, fully furnished, with a balcony for stargazing, doing homework with Martha, who'd moved to Phoenix after all. Someone needs to keep you honest, she'd said with that knowing smile. The rooftop door opened. Celeste appeared, changed from business clothes into jeans and a soft blue sweater. Her hair down around her shoulders, she looked younger, more relaxed, more herself. Thought I'd find you here, she said, moving beside him. Best view in Phoenix, I can think of a better one. She wasn't looking at the sunset, she was looking at him. Ryan turned to face her, taking her hands in his calloused, grease-stained ones. Celeste Davenport, are you flirting with me? I've been flirting with you for 3 months. Ryan Walker, I was beginning to think you hadn't noticed. Oh, I noticed. He pulled her closer, heart hammering. I was just waiting for the right moment. And this is it. This is perfect. When he kissed her high above the city as the sun painted impossible colors across the sky, Ryan understood what Martha meant about being seen. Celeste saw him, not the mechanic or father or employee, but the man beneath all those labels, the man who'd loved and lost and learned to hope again. And when she kissed him back, arms wrapping around his neck as desert wind whispered around them, he knew that flat tires and chance meetings and impossible job offers sometimes led exactly where you needed to be. Hannah would later say that's when Daddy stopped looking sad all the time. Martha would say that's when she knew Sarah's last wish had come true, for Ryan to really live again. And Celeste, she'd say, that's when she learned the difference between inheriting a life and building one. They stood there as the sun set and stars began appearing. Two people from different worlds who'd found their way to each other despite impossible odds. The city spread below them, full of light and possibility and millions of stories still waiting to be written. Theirs was just beginning.